Welcome to a crossover edition of Locked On Seminoles and Locked On Syracuse. I am Brian Smith, host of Locked On Seminoles, here with Jackson Holzer, the troublemaker that runs the Locked On Syracuse podcast. He's the one spearheading the efforts to steal players out of Florida for Syracuse. So everybody make sure you bomb him. But thank you very much for coming in to check us out today. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Thank you once again for tuning in. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, Jackson. Syracuse is kind of going out of their way to come into the Sunshine State and not just get recruits. Like, they're trying to make a living here. They've got 16 commits, 5 of which are from talent-rich Florida. They have a few lined up, including Tedarius Hughes, who we'll get into in depth in a moment. He's a kid that's at Miami Northwestern, longtime Florida State commitment. I've seen him play. Really good. In your opinion, what do you think the biggest reason for Syracuse having so much success now that you've followed it long enough? It's not really just kind of like a small trend. Like, this is a long-term trend now. What is the reasoning that they're having so much success in the state of Florida?
Fran Brown. And the fact that he's got SEC ties, which of course is down south. When Fran Brown was hired, he talked about how he wants to recruit the Northeast and get the best kids from the Northeast to come play for Syracuse, basically stomp all over Penn State and try to compete with them, right? Which is obviously ideal with geography. I was not the host of Locked On Syracuse at the time, but I do remember thinking when they hired Fran Brown, he's not just here to recruit kids out of New York or New Jersey or Connecticut. Like, sure, of course he's going to recruit those guys. He's done it time in and time again. I mean, they're going after Messiah Hampton, albeit everyone in the country seems to be going after him out of New York. But he's coming from Georgia. He was the Georgia defensive backs coach. He's used to recruiting down south. Then you look at their defensive coordinator and who he hires. Elijah Robinson. Where was he before Syracuse? Texas A&M. So you start putting together, you start connecting the dots a little bit, and it's not a surprise that they are going to try to recruit Florida. Do something that Syracuse really has not been able to do in a long time.
They've done a great job of it, and it's not just like, oh, we're going to recruit the south tip of Florida, meaning Broward and Dade and Palm Beach counties. No. They're all over. I mean, they've got an official visit lined up with Julius Miles out of Freeport, which is an hour and a half maybe from Tallahassee, right off I-10 up there in the Panhandle. They've got an official visit with Xavier Payne, who just moved down to the Miami area, Florida State commitment. They've got an official visit set up with Tedarius Hughes, the kid I mentioned a little bit ago from Miami Northwestern, Florida State commitment. They also are after James Johnson, another player from Miami Northwestern that Florida State's after. So there's a lot of crossover this year. So just going to put you on the spot. Do you think that Syracuse will get any of those players or any other Florida kids? Are we going to have to put out a hit squad on you to get rid of Syracuse recruiting in the state of Florida?
Well, first of all, I mean, I'm not responsible for it. I would love to be able to take credit in it, but it's not my credit and it's not my blame if Syracuse were not to get these players. That being said, of course they can actually land some of them. I mean, I can't. They cast a wide net. They're going to offer a lot of scholarships. They're going to take a big recruiting class, and so they're going to end up on a lot of these lists. And you hope to get on 10 lists and get 2 guys, right? That's kind of how recruiting goes. So absolutely, they can get some of these elite players out of the state of Florida. You look at what they did last year. In the class of 2025, they flipped a kid from the University of Florida whose cousin is Marcus May, who went to the University of Florida, a consensus 4-star recruit in Demetrius Samuel Jr. How is that possible?
Well, I give you the gift that never stops giving, Billy Napier, and I say no more.
But Billy Napier can recruit. He can recruit in 2025 class. I mean, 2026. I know you've got.
Whoa. Let me back you up right there.
No.
They bought that class at the end of the year with NIL money that was originally for his buyout.
You know what? They don't ask how. They
Well,
just ask
you're saying Billy was responsible. He was responsible because
I'm just saying they ended up with a really good 2025 class, whether it was because of Billy Napier or all that NIL money they were going to use to buy him out.
You're insinuating it was Billy that did that work. It was not.
I'm just saying that he got the guy somehow. And you always tell me about relationships and how important they are. You got to have something.
He's a decent guy from all accounts. It's just don't put him in charge of how many guys are on the field on special teams.
But Brian, with all due respect, I could be the head coach of the University of Florida, and I should be able to get a guy whose cousin went to the University of Florida to come play for me instead of play for Syracuse. How is that even possible? So you asked me the question, do you actually think they can get a guy like Tedarius Hughes and get him to flip from Florida State to Syracuse? Of course. Of course it can. If you're a Florida State fan and you're overlooking Syracuse here, I would say that's not a good idea right now. This is not Syracuse it's not 2022 with Dino Babers and they're just offering a Florida kid just to say they offered him. Like, no, they're actually going after him and they might land them. So you got to be careful here.
That I 100% agree with. So let me give you a couple of examples. The Julius Miles kid's a 6'5", 6'6" guy, really good basketball player, all-around athlete, flex tight end from Freeport. His visit list is Colorado, obviously Dion. He's got Vandy on May 29th. Obviously, he's got grades. He's got Syracuse June 6th, Louisville June 13th, and Florida State June 20th. Nice variety, but he's a national recruit. That's not the kind of kid that Syracuse is normally in on from Florida. He's right down the road from FSU, so that's self-explanatory. Xavier Payne. He lives in Miami now. He's a kid that could go to all kinds of schools. Syracuse doesn't normally get in on those, like Georgia, Florida State, Penn State. These are some of the others. Syracuse is getting an OV from him. That's pretty impressive. Then you've got James Johnson, who has an offer from pretty much every school in the country. The D-tackle out of Miami Northwestern, they've got a chance at him. All I'm trying to say is that Syracuse is being a major fly in the ointment, not just for like a recruitment, but for several. And I made fun of it last year because I'm like, they're not going to get these kids, et cetera. They got a few. They didn't like dominate, but they made nice inroads. This year, they're doing better in literally. This is hilarious. They have more commitments in Florida than Florida has commitments, period. The Gators have 2 commitments.
That doesn't seem possible.
That's how bad Billy. Okay, there's your Billy Napier reference, by the way. If you could screw up Florida, that's a top 5 job in America. There's a problem. Billy Napier's got a big.
Yeah, the Florida Gators, their next head coach might be Fran Brown. That's all I'll say on that. I mean, that's my long-term prediction.
It would not shock me, but it's a move I'm sure you understand. But at the same time, just looking at this list, if you're going to win long-term in your Syracuse, I've said this to people forever, Syracuse, UConn, BC, Rutgers, those schools up there, it's a basketball haven. The main players play hoops. It's just true. And New York City is not a high school football city. There's not enough space for the fields and all that, so they focus on other things. So those guys, they got to recruit out of state. Syracuse right now is the only one consistently recruiting more than like 100, 200 miles from their campus doing anything. Like Rutgers tries to get some Philly kids and all that, but they really stay local. Even Maryland, they don't do much outside their area that's effective. They try, but they're not having any success. So do you just think it's Fran Brown's personality? I tend to think that's what it is because until last year, Syracuse stunk. And I mean, you're alum. You know that. Is there anything I'm missing here?
No, you're not missing it. And I think a lot of people will say that, in the new days of NIL and everything like that, Syracuse has an advantage. They're a private school. To that, I say you are dead wrong. You are way overestimating Syracuse and NIL. They are not close. They don't spend even close to the amount of money that a big state school like Florida State or the University of Florida, or if we're speaking about private schools, talk about the University of Miami. So if it's really not the money, then it's got to be the coach. And it's got to be the people that he surrounds himself with all ace recruiters. Fran Brown came to Syracuse as the #1 recruiter in the country over at Georgia. All right. He brings on Elijah Robinson, who was also an ace-level recruiter, who helped give Texas A&M at one point the best recruiting class in the country. I believe it was in 2023, the Texas A&M class. That's who he is surrounding himself with. The guy that they would have gotten, or they still have a chance to get Messiah Hampton, but had they kept Ross Douglas, their wide receiver coach, they probably land the #1 player in the state of New York, who is pursued by everybody. And I think he's going to go to Oregon at the end of the day to follow that same wide receivers coach. So, Brian, to answer your question, it's the people.
The people matter, man. It's about relationships. When we come back, a little bit more about that, I want a prediction from Jackson. I'm going to make my own prediction about Florida State in recruiting. It's going to be an either-or kind of scenario. I think Florida State fans probably know what I mean by that, because like Syracuse is butting in, Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, a lot of these schools. This is a very important time for Florida State recruiting. That is next here on this crossover of Locked On Syracuse and Locked On Seminoles. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth for yourself. When you start using Monarch, you'll realize just how much you spend on things that you probably don't need to, whether it's going on trips, going out to the hotel, to stay with some friends for a weekend. All that money adds up. Food delivery, you name it. There are a lot of different things that you can budget and save money with, and that is where Monarch Money comes in. You can also keep your finances in one place, you and your partner, with Monarch Money instead of keeping them separate, to make it easier for you. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for a half off your first year. Bold prediction right off the bat here. If Florida State does not win some of these big battles, which many, ironically, again, James Johnson, Tedarius Hughes, you can't lose Xavier Payne to Syracuse. This staff may not get fired this year, but they're not going to have a great season. They're going to be on the ultra hot seat for next offseason. And it's not completely out of the realm they could get canned if everything truly went sideways. But recruiting right now for Florida State is set up pretty well with visits, but it's no big deal. Like, everybody can set visits up. They just really haven't gotten started until this weekend. And I'm going to do another preview, just kind of going through the list coming up again here for the Florida State fans, but they've got to capitalize. And if there is any program that needs a commitment or two right out of the gate to gain momentum, it's the Noles. Like, it has been really quiet on the recruiting front for a long time. They need to make some noise. So I'm going to ask you, do you think that Syracuse is going to get in, whether they're Florida players or not? Do you think anybody on the upcoming list this weekend is likely? Do you think anybody is like, okay, this is the guy they want? Is there anything going on with them for people to watch out for, or is it just kind of wait and see?
I don't know if it's a bold prediction, but I would keep your eye on Tedarius Hughes.
Oh,
now,
he's talking smack to you Florida State fans. That's what you need to know about
He's
Jackson.
got an official visit with Syracuse on June 6th. I know he's committed to Florida State, so you got to give him the edge so far in recruiting here. Did you check his Twitter yesterday?
Well, he does have this thing where he's got a photo wearing Syracuse gear. That's not normally what you do when you're committed to any school, is wear the gear of a conference foe. Seems a bit unusual.
And it wasn't, like, look, you'll have your commitments who are verbally committed, but they're also taking official visits. And of course, when they're on your another official visit, they're going to wear that team gear. So you're not really worried about it, right? Except this was not an official visit. I just told you he's visiting on June 6th. Why is he rocking Syracuse gear?
I would say that's ominous for the Florida State Seminoles.
Yeah, I would keep your eye on that one. Like, I don't know. Like that doesn't scream, I'm super committed to Florida State. I can't wait to get to Tallahassee.
I think he is one of the better athletes in the state of Florida. He's at Miami Northwestern. He was originally down in Dade County, or the south part of Dade County, one of those two schools down there, county schools. But he is a tremendous athlete. I've seen him play. I think he's the perfect free safety. He's super rangy, very athletic, can change direction well. In certain schemes, maybe a cover 3 scheme, he can play corner. He's what you're looking for. So, yeah, that one would hurt Florida State. And remember now, Patrick Surtain's DB coach, South Florida guy. Evan Cooper, the safeties coach, South Florida guy. That one would sting a lot for Florida State. They've got 2 really good coaches and 2 good recruiters that have ties to that area. So that one would be, I think, more a product of where Florida State was because of Norvell. I keep saying it. Like, one of the reasons he's there is because they didn't want to pay the buyout. It's just true.
100%. And I think I remember recalling early on last season when things were starting to go sideways for Florida State, that the only thing that is worse than keeping Mike Norvell is firing Mike Norvell. And it was a way of me saying that the buyout is so big that it's just too much. You kind of have to just live with it and hope that he can get Florida State back to where they were literally 2 years ago. It's one awful year. And all of a sudden it's like, holy, what is going on with Florida State? But I think that just goes to show you how bad the year was. This was not a 5-7 disappointment. This was 2-10. It was like them and Purdue as the worst teams in power conference football last year. Like, take your pick. Which one was worse? I don't know.
I would say Purdue, but it's pretty close.
Okay.
If Purdue would have beat them in a neutral game, would it shock me? No. That's how bad it was. I mean, Purdue,
it was awful.
Yeah.
But they couldn't get, they could not fire Mike Norvell because that buyout was so
50 plus, if I remember right. It was over $50 million. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
It was awful. They couldn't do it. And if you're a Florida State fan, you better hope to hold on to Tedarius Hughes. Like, I think that would be holding on to him, I think would be a big win. Like, you already got him. The fact that now he's going on official visits, he's rocking other teams' gear. If he stays committed, I think that's a nice victory for Florida State. Are they in on Calvin Russell? I think they are, right?
They are, but I think they're more on the peripheral.
Right. I mean, maybe get more in on him. He's a 5-star guy from Miami Northwestern too.
The thing about him, speaking of Calvin Russell, he's told me and every other reporter the same thing. He's a real nice kid. I'm going to make my decision on signing day, etc. If Florida State starts off the year pretty good, like if they beat Bama or at least competitive, they throw it around, they look good, they'll probably get a visit. If they come out and lay an egg, they probably won't. These kids want to see what they're going to do. So in some ways, by Calvin making a decision later on in the process, Florida State at least has a little bit better chance. But I digress. That's 1 out of 40 guys that are still really going after. Before we move on, I got one more question for you. Is there any position right now? I mean, they got 4 O-linemen committed. That's good for Syracuse. They needed line help. They did a nice job. Is there any position you think they're really trying to go after? Florida State, it's O-line too. Like, there's no doubt. That's their number one. What other spots is Syracuse trying to get in on?
I always look at defensive backs. They got a few of them committed, but that's another reason why I look at a guy like Tedarius Hughes and I say, because you think about Syracuse's top recruits a year ago for the 2025 cycle, Caleb Singleton, Demetrius Samuel. What do they have in common? They're DBs. Fran Brown, what was he at Georgia? Defensive backs coach. So whenever I see an elite defensive back connected to Syracuse, my ears perk up a little bit more so than if it's like a quarterback or it's an offensive lineman. So I would keep your eye on defensive backs, especially with a guy like Fran Brown and his background.
Yeah, that's fair. And in today's college football world, your base package is a nickel. I mean, sometimes it's dime, depending on what they run out there on play. Like, if somebody's in 5 wide on play 1, is anybody shocked? No.
Nope. Hey, Brian, has anyone ever said to you, man, we have too many defensive backs?
No, I've never had that comment made to me by a college coach, high school coach, player, trainer, or anything else. That's a noteworthy point.
There's like a few positions in football where you can just never have enough of.
D-line,
offensive linemen, defensive linemen, any of the outside positions. Like, you can never have enough wide receivers, and you can never have enough defensive backs.
Got to rotate. Got to rotate. When we come back, we're going to discuss the possibility that Syracuse takes a step back, or we have no idea what Florida State. I want to ask your opinion on Florida State, actually. I want your take. I have my own opinion, which is 7-5. I want to see if Jackson agrees with me. But Syracuse is scheduled this next year. You guys got cheated. You guys absolutely got the hosing. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles and Locked On Syracuse Crossover. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Syracuse and Locked On Seminoles podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in. You can find us wherever you get your podcast for free and on YouTube. I am Brian Smith, host of Locked On Seminoles with Jackson Holzer, the Locked On Syracuse host, who's one of the more responsible people for Syracuse stealing players away from Florida State.
I'm not responsible.
Yeah, well, we'll get down to the bottom of that later.
Brian, if I was responsible, do you think I would only stop at like 4 or 5 Florida guys?
Well, there's a lot of time between signing day, okay?
Brian,
so I know how you work.
Literally every good player in the country would be committed to Syracuse. We wouldn't be having a crossover. We wouldn't be having a crossover. It wouldn't be you wouldn't be relevant enough. It would be Syracuse and nobody else if I was responsible for it.
You don't get unlimited scholarships at Syracuse, much to your chagrin. But anyway,
we get 105, and we're going to get the 105 best players in the country.
Okay. That's not arrogant or anything. Syracuse's schedule last year, they got Miami last in the Dome. Great game, great comeback. That schedule, when you first looked at it last year, besides the Miami game, which I'm sure you kind of circled, hey, that's kind of interesting. We'll see how it goes. Were there any other points in the schedule you're like, man, this could go wrong? Or did you think last year's schedule was just very manageable from September to October to November?
I thought it was manageable the entire way through. And when I looked in the preseason and Miami's on the schedule, initially my thought was, okay, that's going to be a real tough one. And I'm not saying it wasn't tough. I mean, yeah, we won the game, but it was a tough game. Had to come back from 21 in it. But watching Syracuse play over the year, I still was picking Miami to win. But I think Syracuse at least had a puncher's chance, dare I say a little bit more than that with how explosive they were on offense. So it worked out being where I look back at Syracuse from a year ago and say they finished about where they should have, but they had a shot to be like Indiana with that schedule. They really did. They could have they could have gone 11-1. It could have happened. They had that Stanford meltdown at the end. They lost a close game, which they should have beaten Boston College out of. The one game where it was the real blemish was the Pitt game. But if Syracuse had gone 11-1 and their only loss was that terrible loss to Pitt, they probably get into the college football playoff anyway. They would have been like Indiana. And now there are other ways to look at it, like, oh, they had to come back against Miami. They almost lost to UNLV. So that's why I say they finished about where I expected, but they definitely got blessed with the schedule. It was not that difficult. This year, it's not fun. I hate looking at the schedule, to be quite honest with you. I hate it. You're muted, Brian.
I think that Syracuse is 6-6, 7-5 with pretty much the same talent, give or take. Maybe not quite as explosive because you lost Pena to Penn State, and he was just a clutch player. But they've got speed. They still got good running backs. Got to see if, how that works out, etc. O-line's getting better in terms of depth. They should be pretty good. But schedule, like the key games, a lot of them are on the road. The timing of them is not so blessed. And now the biggest thing, and this is why I think college football is so awesome. Syracuse goes into the year and they're circled by everybody because they beat Miami last year, because they were the darling, because they got all the media attention. It's going to be harder. if they don't put much more effort into the offseason and fall camp, they'll get their teeth kicked in because they're going to get everybody's best shot. It's different when you're circled, the Georgias, Texases, Ohio States, those kind of programs. And in the ACC, they're looked at differently. So what is your projection for Syracuse record right now if you had to pick today?
I have them slightly over on their over-under. I think most sports books have them at 5.5 wins, so I'll say 6.
I was going to say 7-5, but 6-6, 7-5.
It's just too difficult. I see Syracuse as a team with a huge range of outcomes, like maybe the biggest range of outcomes in the country, and it's mainly because of their quarterback play and the inexperience with it. It's either going to be Steve Angeli or Ricky Collins. Steve Angeli's got more experience, and I say this to people all the time. He had a legitimate chance to be Notre Dame's starting quarterback. To me, that means something. He didn't transfer in December when he could have. You know why? Because Notre Dame told him, you're going to have a shot. We believe in you enough to give you a chance, and just because you don't win the starting job doesn't make you bad. I mean, Joe Burrow never won it at Ohio State. He turned out okay, right? But still, he's got 80 career passing attempts. His first game is going to be against Tennessee. If you don't go with Steve Angeli, your other option is Ricky Collins. 7 career passing attempts at LSU. If you get great quarterback play, they can exceed expectations. They can win 8-9 games again. And they can go into some of these places that you wouldn't expect and win those games because they have an excellent quarterback again. If they don't, you look at that schedule, they can win 4 games. You get bad quarterback play, you can look at their 6 road games and call them all losses right now. All of them.
If they don't win a single road game, that'd be pretty disappointing. But they're all difficult.
You get bad quarterback play, are you going to beat Tennessee neutral site?
Well, Tennessee's in a pretty big pickle too. Normally, I would say absolutely not, but that could be an ugly game.
Maybe that could be like 14-10.
Yeah, it could be.
Okay, fine. How about at Clemson?
They're going to get shellacked.
Okay, at Notre Dame?
Senior day at Notre Dame. How do you think that's going to go for the Orange?
If you have sloppy quarterback play,
that could be 41-10. Yeah.
41-10.
Yeah.
That's it? See, that's my dog in the background saying.
Okay. Fair enough. But, well, on the Florida State side, it's interesting with their schedule. I keep looking at it all the time, and I've got it up right now that I'm looking at it. But, like, the first thing is first. They play Bama right out of the gate. That is not easy. Obviously, that's a rough way to go. But then they get a couple of games they should win, East Texas A&M and Kent State. If they don't win those games, then I may have to resign from my position. I can't handle another situation like that again last year. They got Virginia on the road. It's a road game, but it's Virginia. You should be 3-1. You got Miami coming to town. There's your first chance to do something. I mean, it's Miami. They have more talent. I would think Miami would win, but it's at Tallahassee, and in these games, it always seems like the team that's not better plays better. I don't know what it is about that series. It's very odd. So in Tallahassee, Thomas Castellanos, I know Florida State's going to save some stuff, maybe, but they've got a game against Clemson on the road. At the end of the year, they play Virginia Tech at home. Then they go to NC State. They go to Florida. After the Clemson, like their last 4 is really hard, so they're backloaded. I'm picking Syracuse and Florida State to finish with the same record. It's coincidental. It's 7-5. It's just their schedules. They have their moments. They're difficult. Who's your pick to win the ACC?
Probably Clemson at this point.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be. I don't even think it'll be close.
Really?
No, I don't. I think they're way better because their D line is so much better than everybody else's.
Oh, so you're picking Clemson too?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying it's not going to be Clemson. I was like, then who do you?
No, it's not going to be close. My apologies.
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be Clemson. They're probably the consensus favorite. I look at Florida State, and I made fun of them so much last year. I think they're a bowl team. But that's it.
7-5.
I think they are a bowl team. You get is it Castellanos or Castellanos? I've heard both.
Thomas Castellanos.
Castellanos? Okay. I do not like him as a quarterback. I don't know anything about him as a person, but I don't like him as a quarterback. That being said, it's because I don't think he has that high of a ceiling, but I know his floor can get you to a bowl.
Yeah.
How about that? Like, I think he can get you to a bowl. Like, they're going to lose to Alabama, whether they like it or not. East Texas A&M, I've never heard of them, so they're going to win that game. Kent State, if they don't beat Kent State.
You'll get my resignation.
Okay. At Virginia, you should win that one. And Miami at home.
They win the Miami game this season.
How is Carson Beck's elbow at this point?
That's like, how's his mental state with it? That's my bigger question, because because by then they'll have played Notre Dame and Florida. He might have had the bejesus beaten out of it. Those two teams got guys that are going to hit you. So he may be rolling and he may not. Like, that's a really unique scenario. I don't know the answer to it.
I can't get a read on Miami next year.
I can't either.
I can't. I think of them and I'm like, yeah, they could go 10-2. They could also go 6-6. They can also go. They could be one of the disappointments this year and go 5-7 because Carson Beck has a noodle arm from his elbow surgery. I don't know. Like, I can't get a read on them, so I don't know. It's a toss-up. It's a pickup game at this point. Pitt at home. I mean, come on now. I know Pitt's a pretty good team. You got to be able to beat Pitt at home, at Stanford, Wake. They don't have that hard of a schedule. I'm looking at it right now. I mean, this team should be a bowl team next season, period. If they're not a bowl team, then you kind of have to fire Mike Norvell.
I don't know if they will, because the contract's still going to be over $40 million. That's why this is so awkward. 7-5 is Dangerville. It is Dangerville because you go to a bowl, which is, they've improved, but like they still have quite a bit of talent on that roster. It's not where it needs to be. I get it. But they still have a lot of talent on that roster. It's going to be the in-between that fans hate. You either want out or you want to win big. 7-5, 8-4 seasons at schools like Florida State.
I agree with you. I'm well aware of that. As someone who grew up a Florida fan, 7-5 is no bueno. We don't care about 7-5, right? That being said, I think there are levels to 7-5. I think if the team is really good, but the quarterback play is not good, then you sit here and you say, you know what? Just get a better quarterback next year. Enough with the DJs and the Thomas Castellanos. I mean, go get – it's hard, easier said than done, but go get someone like Jordan Travis again. Go get someone that can be that force multiplier. And then Florida State, all of a sudden in 2026, we're looking at them and saying, so, college football playoff? I mean, that's Florida State for you.
Yeah.
It's not like they can have a really bad year, and it should not sink their program for eternity. This is not Syracuse football here. If they have one bad year, it could literally ruin everything. Florida State's a big-time program. Figure out a way to go 7-5, maybe even 8-4, even if you don't get the best quarterback play. And now all of a sudden we're looking in 2026 saying, get a better quarterback, they'll be better.
Yeah. Jackson, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Sure. Well, I am the host of Locked On Syracuse, so you can just search up Locked On Syracuse wherever you get your podcasts, and you can follow along that content. Also on social media, on Twitter at JacksonH_52. That is my personal Twitter, but also Locked On Syracuse Twitter at LO_Syracuse.
Appreciate it. You can find me on X at LO_Seminoles. You can find Locked On Seminoles podcast as well, and on X. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your pods on the go. Thank you very much. This has been Locked On Syracuse and Locked On Seminoles crossover.